So, to start off, you may be wondering who am I, or why do I have any say in what, tier each spell is? Okay, so to start us off, I want to put blue square just right dab in the center to set off more of a standard we're going for. It's hard to find spells you don't want to cast, except for the womp womp tier. So yellow square, I feel, is just a tier above it. For now, that doesn't mean a lot. It just has more utility. It keeps them in the air longer. It keeps them, held up for combos, but also it keeps them locked down so you can go into a lot more than you would be able to with blue square. Green squares I do generally like more than yellow square because when you get green square, it covers a lot more options than either of the other squares can, and a lot of the other moves can't cover. So things that would usually go under your squares now get hit, you can do jump back, and it actually covers a decent range. So it has just that bit more utility. I think these squares are all very close together, so kind of redundant to, vote, but here we are. Now I think the square that beats them all is I don't know why I made that noise. But anyways, I think the square that beats them all is this multi-hitting square. If you don't know how it works, it can either start at 5 or start at 1 and build up to 5, or start at 5 and go down to 1. I think the one that starts at 5 is obviously the best, because as a Asuka, you don't want to be holding your spells for long usually. You're constantly rotating your spells. It does what all three of them want to do, just better when it has 5 on it. So just to keep with projectiles that do damage, square with the cube inside is super good utility-wise. It's not so good as just throwing it out there as the other ones do, but what it gives you is just... Obviously, it can get you a better mix-up, but I think you have a better option for that. It can set up so you can either gain mana or gain 2 spell. It keeps them locked down long enough that you can actually gain mana and do super and still be in an advantage. Which you'll find that having a way to get free super with the Asuka is very good. Which makes me want to move on to this one. I understand a lot of other people may not find this as good and more just as a funny move, but I genuinely think it's unmatched in what it does. It keeps your opponent locked down. So when you think about it, the mana you're spending, because a lot of people cite the mana cost for it being kind of gimmicky and goofy, but since you can instantly gain the mana back while they're still locked down in the first wave, it's really hard to not justify this move being really, really good. But you definitely you don't want to just throw it out there. If you find this move bad, it's probably because you're just throwing it out there. The high is super good. And I have to be convinced of this a little, because it's not a move you want to throw out when your opponent is running at you, because you will just miss it. An overhead that leaves you, plus, and that is fairly fast. I think plus 17. Flash it on screen. It's good. It's good at what it does. When talking about the low, I do find it's a lot weaker. It does have a use with jump back low because it covers a very wide range. You have down dust anyways, so a lot of people want to be blocking low, so it's not that surprising of a mix-up as you would think a long-range low maybe. Explosion is just super good. Obviously, just can put them in guard crush, which is very good. It's pretty fast, and if you catch your opponent with it, especially in the corner, it can lead to very big damage. It's just super good at what it does, but not only that, it has a super big hitbox. Jump back into explosion just beats a lot of characters. A lot of characters can't deal with that. In the same vein, I think electric tidbits is very good because it has all the same attributes as explosion, just I think a little bit smaller. It's just having a guard crush is super good on Asuka. And finally, the last thing on here that does damage, the DP. which I'm just gonna go outright and say it. It is worse than Blue Cube. It's it's super bad to be holding spells. You don't want to be holding spells, but you always have to hold this DP because the only thing really good about it is the threat that you actually have a DP. Obviously, it has a pretty shitty hitbox. It has shitty recovery. It's just not a great DP, even in general. It's gonna be swapped away a lot. You just have so many better options than holding onto this DP hoping it'll be useful. Now I do want to talk about the staff collection, which I'm going to be honest with you, it's definitely not the best. Staffs are hard to justify using most of the time, except for exceptions, and we'll get into those. First of all, I want to say up staff, play the sound. Thank you. And in the same vein, we have push away staff. In very niche cases, you can put it inside you and it kind of launches your projectiles, but most of the time you're just gonna forget or you're just gonna throw it down because you want to get rid of your spells, and then all your spells will start flying at your opponent, then suddenly coming back to you and just completely whiffing. And you'll hate your life. I've seen it screw over me. I've seen it screw over other people so many times. Now, something I will say is slightly better is down down. It's reduces jumping and makes your projectiles, you know, like bounce a little. It's very funny looking. And in a similar vein, I think it can be pretty good. I won't lie to you. It's saved my ass sometimes because people don't know how to deal with that. It's not that good. Very rarely do you want your projectiles to be going slower. So while it's interesting and in, you know, niche cases and niche matchups, it can find its uses. It's just not a thing I'd be wanting to cast over everything else, which is the common thing with the lower tiers. It's just hard to justify casting this over anything else. And then we get to good staff 1. I'm going to throw it high B, which is pretty good praise for the staffs, as you can see. It pulls in all the projectiles, but what that means is that projectiles that look like they missed will come back around and hit them from behind. And the amount of people I see get hit by this because they assume the projectile just flew straight by them, and then whata! And yeah, and then they get hit, and then you get damaged. And let's not sugarcoat it. A staff in S tier? What the hell does this staff do? It's just, it creates crazy pressure. All your cubes just become bullets. Just, obviously you get it in test case 1, but a lot of the time if you get it in your opening hand before you change to test case 3, you can, you know, combine it with the 2 moves also in S tier. And that just changes your S tier moves into very fast and guard crushing S tier moves. But that's kind of all the staff's gone. Okay, so let's just get this out of the way. Refresh spell is... it's just never really efficient to be using this over, you know, just casting spells. But you're never looking for this spell. In the niche cases, you do combine this with a good spell. It's nice, but it's nice in the same vein of sometimes slow staff works. I think this is one of the worst spells, because unlike Refresh spell, you're spending this time and resource, because it's a fighting game, every second matters, and you're spending it getting a random spell, and ones that aren't even that good. And to get the last red spell out of the way, ignore that. Yay! Teleport, I think, enables a lot of mix-up for Asuka, and that's why I have it so high. A lot of what you'll see is the multi-wave projectile into using teleport to teleport behind them, and that means you cross them up. Okay, and now to get into... we'll go with the mana regen, or mana consumption ones. This one, it's... sometimes you're going to cast it, but you're very rarely going to notice its effect. but it's not gonna save you. It's not gonna, you know, really matter. Oh, and what I was alluding to earlier. This is the worst spell. I hate this spell. I hate this spell so goddamn much. I hate playing with it. I hate the fact that it looks the same as, like, all the other ones, and then it just deletes all your spells. So, for those who don't know, this gets rid of your spells for mana. Only case scenario where you want to use this is right before an ultimate, because you can instantly regain all your mana, because you can't use it with the gaining spell cards, because it gets rid of them. And getting that bit of mana before ultimate, but when do you ultimate? When you have no spells. Don't use this. If you like using it, put in the comments why, and I'll downvote it and call you stupid in the comments. That was mean. I'm sorry, but I will do that. And finally, green. Finally, a good one. It lets you spam like the other one wants you to do, and it gains you back mana like the deleting one does. It actually gains you mana while you're being hit. This means you're not going to break shield as often, but also lets you spam. It lets you spam a lot more, because the best thing about Asuka is not having to gain resources, aka not having to gain spells or not having to gain mana. And in talking about that, not having to gain spells, I'm gonna put this one here. I believe that, you know, refreshing your spells to look for ones, you know, that are actually good is useful, but the other two options will do it better. So it's hard to call it bad. It's, if you have it and you have a shite hand, use it. It's good, but you'll see that I put the other two higher because this one is really good at refilling your hand. If you find yourself in a scenario, or if you have this in hand, you can just kind of push out all your spells, and you don't have to worry about it because it fills all the slots. And that basically means you can, while you have this in hand, you can focus on gaining mana for those few spells, and that lets you, you know, throw stuff out and not worry about it. This one does it a lot better. And to say this is the best spell in the game is an understatement. Having this up is a game plan on its own, because it means for those 10 seconds you have it up, it's non-stop pressure. You don't have to worry about gaining spells. This is what enables, you know, this into teleport into overhead, big square cube, and you don't have to worry about, I have to refresh my spells, so that takes up a valuable half second. The half second is gone. Just throw it out. Just throw out whatever you want. I promise you, it's gonna work good. But like, if you disagree with me, you're stupid. If you disagree with me though, please tell me. I am very biased to test case 3. So if you have a different way of playing Asuka that uses test case 2 and really abuses, the low, you can tell me. I'll love to take in any feedback. This isn't an end all be all, it is my opinion. So yeah, I may make more Strive content in the future if people like that. It was really fun to do. Goodbye. Fuck.